While in Anchorage, Alaska, 20-year-old German college student Anna Doppler shops for the perfect souvenirs for her loved ones back home in the Bavarian city of Munich. But her shopping trip doesn't go as planned, and her family will never receive their presents. Anna accepts a ride from a mysterious stranger and is never to be seen again. And her friends and family are left wondering what happened to Anna as she seemingly vanishes into thin air. What clues exist to help authorities solve her disappearance? And who could be responsible for Anna not boarding the ship? "20-year-old German university student Anna Doppler is working on a cruise ship in Alaska as a banquet server, along with her friends from back home, Sophia and Charlotte.
Anna Doppler is a college student from Germany. She's lots of fun, has lots of friends. She doesn't take life too seriously. She likes to joke around. She does lots on social media. She's always on her phone. She's known for being a very kind of a life of the party sort of person, very friendly, very personable. People tend to like her.
I met Anna when I traveled to Munich, and we hit it off immediately. We broke up shortly before I came home, and right before she went on this trip. It hurt, but we remained friends. She loved taking pictures and posting them all over social media. She had so many followers. I never saw Anna without her phone. It was like it was a part of her. She used it all the time. Anna would always talk about traveling. She had so many places on her bucket list.
It's June 13th, 2016, and the ship is docked in Victoria, BC. While there, Anna takes pictures, which she sends to her family and friends in Munich, Germany. With a large social media presence, Anna is able to share her journey with loved ones back home in Bavaria, something which Anna's parents, Martha and Werner Doppler, are thankful for, as they can check up on her journey from the comfort of home.
Anna was really close to her family. She loved them so much, but traveling was something she just had to do. I continued to follow her and her trip online. I was really glad she went with friends so that they could look out for each other.
Anna and her friends continue to document their journey on social media as the ship makes its way up the British Columbia coast and along the Alaskan Panhandle, passing Ketchikan and Juneau, before docking in the Alaskan port city of Homer, the ship's final stop. The travel-hungry Anna can't wait to get to Anchorage, Alaska, where she can once again enjoy having fun and shopping for souvenirs. But due to her gregarious nature, Anna seems to attract attention wherever she goes.
Anna never had any problem making friends. She just made everyone feel good when you were around her, which could be good and bad.
Anna's working on the ship to pay for her next year of university. It's tough work, but between her friends from school, Sophia and Charlotte, and the many exotic stops along the way, working on board the ship is well worth it. Another reason to get off the boat is the constant pressure from Anna's Alaskan-born roommate, Tracy. Tracy has been working on these cruise ships for years and has developed a harsh, no-nonsense attitude that the young German students find a little hard to bear.
I heard from her family that Anna felt a lot of anxiety around Tracy. She was just really tough to work with.
Cruise ship companies typically have a very strict policy regarding their employees and how they're to interact with the passengers on the ship. So generally it's prohibited for the members of the crew to have relationships with passengers. They're not to interact other than in a professional manner. Well, the consequences for being caught very often are termination, depending on where you're caught. There have been instances where crew members have been dropped off at the nearest port of call and they've had to find their own way back to wherever it is they come from.
Like any workplace, there's rules on cruise ship about the staff getting a bit too friendly with the passengers. They're supposed to keep a professional distance. And this is for a reason. It can get really awkward if there's a romantic fling gone wrong on a cruise ship and there's romantic complications between the passengers and the crew. So cruise ships, like any other working environment, like to keep things professional.
Tracy is particularly hard on Anna. She finds the outgoing young woman to be lazy and unprofessional, not up to the high standards required to work as a banquet server aboard a luxury cruise liner. Though there is something about Anna that nevertheless seems to interest Tracy. An interest that will prove unhealthy for all involved. Now, it's finally the day Anna's been waiting for. The ship is docked in its ultimate destination of Anchorage, the largest city in Alaska. As they disembark the ship for town, Anna and her friends take their usual selfies. But on this day, Anna's phone runs out of power. It seems that all the pictures she's taken during the course of the trip have taken their toll. She's unaware her roommate has tampered with her phone. Anna makes the decision to leave her phone charging on board the ship while she goes into town, lest she keep Sophia and Charlotte waiting. And the decision to leave without her only means of communication will eventually prove to be a mistake. Anna, Sophia, and Charlotte have enjoyed browsing for distinctly North American items on their travels, and the southern Alaskan port city of Anchorage is near the top of their souvenir list, due to the town's status as the state's largest metropolis.
So when cruise ships go to port, just like the passengers, quite often the crew also gets a bit of a break and they get to get off the ship and take a look around, maybe buy some souvenirs. This particular port, Alaska, Anna's really been excited about. She really wanted to get some perfect Alaskan souvenirs to bring back for her family. But it's not as easy to find these as she thought it would be.
But this time, the young German students have an unwelcome pair of eyes following their every move. And as Sophia and Charlotte decide to head back to the ship a little early so as to not be late for work that evening, Anna elects instead to stay behind in town alone, as she is yet to find the perfect Alaskan souvenirs for her family back home in Munich, Germany.
So depending on what a crew member's assignment is and what their work shift might be at the various ports of call the ship attends to, crew members have the opportunity to leave the boat and see some of the port or see some of the island that they may go to. They're not confined to the ship for the entire duration of the voyage. In this particular instance, a crew member, Anna, decided she wanted to go ashore and purchase some souvenirs.
Having finally found suitable gifts for her loved ones, Anna heads back to the ship. And now, Anna has to hurry in order to get back in time for dinner prep. And with Tracy constantly breathing down her neck, the travel-crazy Anna can't afford to slip up if she wants to be asked back as an employee for future cruises. But being late for dinner proves the last of Anna's worries. as she's approached by someone who offers her a ride.
As Anna was walking around by herself in town, she was approached by someone. We're not sure yet who the person was. She seems to be following them like they knew each other.
This car ride will be a fateful misadventure, as the young banquet server will never be seen again. "20-year-old German college student Anna Doppler is working as a banquet server on a luxury Alaskan cruise liner for the summer. Along with her two friends from back home, Sophia and Charlotte, the travel-mad Anna has gone all the way up the British Columbia coast, along the Alaskan Panhandle, and into the mainland towns of Homer and Anchorage. But the charismatic young German student is garnering some unwanted attention. And as Anna makes her way back to the ship later that afternoon, she's approached by someone who offers her a ride. When Anna doesn't return to the ship that night for dinner prep, Sophia and Charlotte begin to worry. Though a fun-loving and sometimes careless person, it's not like Anna to completely disregard her duties.
Well, with a crew member not showing up for their assigned work time, it would alert certain people on the ship, and they would question as to whether or not she was just in her cabin and slept in and missed her shift, or if she didn't make it back onto the boat after going ashore at the last port. Time's a very important factor in the investigation of a disappearance. This clock doesn't start until you know the person has disappeared, and if it can be established that they disappeared quite some time prior, then all kinds of problems come into play, such as, evidence going missing or being ruined depending on external things like weather or somebody tampering with it. Also, the distance that gets put between the cruise ship and where the person went missing, if they were to have gone overboard, for example, that distance is great, and the search area becomes that much larger.
Of course, there could have been ways that maybe she got back on the ship or ended up not leaving. She left her phone behind in her room, so did she end up deciding to stay? Did she get back and no one marked her present? Is she still on land? There were lots of questions at that time.
I was getting worried when she stopped posting on social media. And the same with her friends. It's not like them to be not posting anything.
So when Sophia and Charlotte are unable to reach her on her phone, they start to become even more concerned, as it's really not like Anna to be away from her phone for too long. The Anchorage police are alerted to the situation and begin their search on board the ship, suspecting she made it back on board. But soon they come across a key piece of evidence that will make them question what has taken place. Having forgotten that their friend left her cell phone charging on board the ship while they all departed for Anchorage that morning, Sophia and Charlotte begin to panic as they realize their friend is likely back in town without a means of communication. That night, the police searched 3 houses that belonged to owners of the local shops Anna visited earlier that day. But none of the homes are found to be suspicious. And later that night, with an itinerary to complete and thousands of passengers to think about, the ship weighs anchor and leaves Anchorage without the missing banquet server, Anna Doppler.
Even though they know that Anna's not on board, they have ways of keeping track of this, who's on board, who's not, and this troubles them. They do have to keep to their schedules.
The next day, the FBI arrive via Seattle and begin their investigation both on board the ship and in Anchorage. By now, the Doppler family have been told of Anna's disappearance. Before they fly to Anchorage, the devastated family set up a social media page where anyone can post news they might have about Anna's case.
The whole investigation process was difficult on the family. The authorities just couldn't seem to figure it out.
That night, Sophia and Charlotte checked the social media page Anna's family made about her disappearance. But there's no news.
I follow the social media page that her family made about her daily. Every day that went by without an update was worse than the last. I felt so helpless that I couldn't go and help find her.
Despite this situation, it's still business as usual on board the ship, and Sophia and Charlotte are expected to continue working. While the passengers on board have not been told about Anna's disappearance, Sophia and Charlotte have given the FBI a clue as to who they think might be a suspect in the investigation.
Right away, Anna's friends indicate one man as being a bit suspicious, who had shown an extreme amount of interest in Anna during the short time that he'd been aboard. There were quite a few questions that would arise from their interactions, such as like, who is this man? What was his interest in Anna? What had their interactions been like throughout the trip so far?
The FBI conduct a number of interviews, and the crew members all have alibis. A group of American tourists are also investigated, and also appear to have convincing stories. The authorities release the tourists from questioning, all except one. Jonas Murray, the young man who came late to dinner the night Anna went missing, is detained for further examination. Does he know anything more about Anna's disappearance? What the FBI uncovers next turns the whole investigation upside down. While on an excursion in the town of Anchorage, Alaska, cruise ship employee Anna Doppler just wanted to find the perfect souvenirs to give her family and friends back home in Munich, Germany. But after departing the ship without her phone and spending a little too much time browsing the local shops, Anna accepts what she thinks is a ride back to the docks from a mysterious stranger. Plunging her family and friends into a desperate search for answers. After being tipped off that a party of American tourists were known to have been particularly interested in Anna during the course of the cruise, the FBI interrogate the group further. But according to them, they were all back on board the ship well before Anna was said to have gone missing. There was a beer pong tournament happening that afternoon, and they didn't want to miss it. But that doesn't account for Jonas Murray, who, according to multiple members of the crew, did not join his friends at the beer pong tournament. Jonas's interest in Anna continues to make the police suspicious. Jonas was also seen coming to dinner late on the evening of Anna's disappearance. But according to Jonas, he was only late because he was sick from the previous night's dinner and spent all day in the bathroom while his friends went into town.
Anytime people are in close contact with each other in large groups, like on a plane, for instance, or on a cruise ship, there's a great likelihood that germs are going to get transferred and people are going to get sick. So in this case, his story isn't unbelievable. He very well could have been sick the whole time.
Well, anytime large numbers of people are confined to a relatively small space, the idea that somebody with an illness could pass that illness to someone else is likely. Crew members particularly are, residing in the lower decks, and they don't have a lot of space to be able to get outside, so they're trapped together. So if one person is sick, chances are many people are going to get sick.
But they search the ship's hallway cameras and discover footage of Jonas running down the hallway back to his room just before his friends leave for town. It seems he really was sick that day and was unable to leave his suite. The room card scans from Jonas's door confirm he re-entered his cabin and didn't come back out until dinner. The kitchen crew can confirm that multiple people were sick that day, as a number of utensils were improperly cleaned. The kitchen supervisor tells them that he was very angry with his staff and blamed Tracy for not being diligent enough as a shift manager. The FBI also investigate Tracy, who finally admits to something the officers were not expecting. According to Tracy, she unplugged Anna's phone the night before they docked in Anchorage, knowing Anna would have to leave it behind on the ship to charge when she went into town the next day. This meant that her chances of being late for her shift that evening would likely go up, as Anna did not have a wristwatch and would eventually lose track of time. This would make Anna look bad to the kitchen supervisor, meaning maybe the young German student would not be asked back for future cruises, and Tracy would not have to deal with her again. But was this merely an employee pulling a prank on another employee? Or is there something more sinister going on here?
Tracy's been fed up for some time about Anna's lack of work ethic. She thinks that Anna's not taking the job as seriously as she should. So she unplugs Anna's phone the night before after Anna goes to sleep, hoping that this will make Anna late coming back on the ship. Right away, this fact throws more suspicion on Tracy.
A whole week goes by with no news regarding Anna's case, until on June 28, 2016, a key piece of evidence is discovered in the case. Anna is seen on CCTV footage captured by an Anchorage hotel, walking with a man investigators quickly identify as local 45-year-old bailiff Eddie Sambarg. The footage appears to show Sambarg leading Anna down the hotel's back alley.
Eddie is identified as the man on the CCTV footage with Anna, and they seem to be walking in close proximity, but she's behind him a bit, so there still isn't proof of anything. It still doesn't definitively prove that they were together. And there's no audio on the footage where any conversation could be picked up if there was a conversation.
But is this truly a nefarious encounter? Is Eddie Sambarg the mysterious stranger who offered Anna a ride? "20-year-old German college student and cruise ship banquet server Anna Doppler has spent the last few days exploring the coastlines of British Columbia and Alaska with her fellow Bavarian compatriots, Sophia and Charlotte. But after leaving her phone behind on board the ship as she joins her friends in the town of Anchorage, Alaska, the travel-mad young Anna finds herself being forced to make a difficult decision. One that will prove to be a fateful misadventure, as she appears to accept a ride from a man the FBI have identified as a well-respected local bailiff, Eddie Sambarg.
Eddie's the last person you'd suspect of any wrongdoing. He works in law enforcement as a bailiff. He's very well respected in the community. He's a nice, soft-spoken guy by all accounts. No one seems to have had any problem with him. He even volunteers to do yard work for elderly neighbors, which shows that he's a trusted member of their community. They let him into their yards.
Could Eddie Sambarg be involved in such a horrible crime? The FBI waste no time jumping on what little evidence they have been able to muster in the case so far. They interview Sambarg and search his home. They find multiple hunting knives, firearms, and animal remains. and even confiscate his computer data. But something else entirely makes them stop dead in their tracks. The case looks to have been blown wide open at the discovery of Tracy in a series of what appeared to be family photos in which the cruise line employee is enjoying Eddie Samberg's company at a variety of familial functions. But before they get back to the ship to interrogate Tracy further, the FBI still have some unfinished business to take care of with Samberg. A wheelbarrow and shovel are seen in Eddie's truck, and when the FBI question him, he tells them he often does gardening for a number of his neighbors. But when the agents ask him where he was on the day Anna went missing, Samberg tells them he rents a trailer up in Chugach State Park. He was up there the day Anna's disappearance, he claims. With a decent alibi and no criminal record, could a reputable local bailiff possibly know or be hiding something about Anna's disappearance? He was seen on the CCTV footage walking with Anna, but appeared to be just far enough away from the young German student to suggest that they may not necessarily have been walking together.
Closed-circuit television or video surveillance footage often lacks context. So in the circumstances where there's no audio, you don't hear potential conversations between two people, or whether there was even a conversation between two people. Body language is really the only thing you have to sort of gauge whether or not there is a relationship between the people you're seeing on the video. What's the setting? Who else is around? How close are they together? You know, the perspective of the camera doesn't always give you an indication as to how close they are together in the frame. They could be further apart than it appears. They could be closer together than it appears. That context is missing. The closed-circuit television footage that we have shows a male in the frame with Anna. Given the angle that the picture is taken at, we can't tell exactly how close he is to her and whether he's actually with her or just a bystander or a person that happens to be in the same area. There's no way to tell whether they're actually together at this point.
But despite his good local reputation, the FBI insists on investigating Eddie's shack up in the Chugach State Park, just northeast of town, and Samberg even agrees to take them there himself. The FBI first search Eddie's shack, but nothing suspicious is found. Then, just a few hundred yards from the shack, the FBI notice an area of the forest that may have been disturbed by human hands. When pressed on the matter, Samberg suddenly becomes shockingly cooperative. And tells the FBI where they should look for Anna next. While on a day trip to the town of Anchorage, Alaska, cruise ship employee Anna Doppler goes missing after finding herself stranded in town alone without a cell phone. But after a week of no news, the FBI are finally given a lifeline when their investigation of well-respected local bailiff Eddie Samberg turns up much more than they bargained for. As Samberg appears to have an eerie connection to the ship where the young German college student Anna worked as a server. This leads the investigators to a shack in the woods just northeast of town, where a suspicious-looking scene is discovered. After investigating the shack and discovering blood on the ground, Eddie appears to lead the FBI straight to Anna's burial site.
It's very strange that Eddie would actually lead the investigators to the body. They wouldn't have probably found out otherwise. So does he have a guilty conscience? Is there a part of him that wanted to get caught? Hard to say why he would do something so strange.
Generally, criminals don't commit crimes with the idea that they're going to be caught, or certainly not for the purpose of being caught. It takes a fairly significant psychological issue within that person's mind to want to be caught for a crime like murder. So the idea that this person would deliberately murder somebody and then take the police to their body so that he can claim responsibility for it is highly unusual.
Now, Eddie has been seen with Anna, walking with Anna. He's led the investigators to their body, so it's pretty obvious that he's guilty. But why? What reason would he have to kill this innocent young woman who was just enjoying a day with her friends? There doesn't seem to be any likely motive.
That night, the FBI looked through Sandberg's computer data and discovered an extensive collection of violent pornography, including real-life depictions of rape and other forms of physical abuse. It seems now that Eddie Sandberg's depraved desires are about to be made public. But if he is in fact guilty, what could have led him to commit such an act? And was he truly the only one involved? It takes the FBI 12 hours to extract Anna's body from the shallow grave, as they want to preserve as much evidence as possible in the case. Because of the damage done to her body, Anna is positively identified by her tattoo, a phrase written in her native German, which translates to "travel is life" in English, a fitting tribute to her adventurous and spontaneous spirit.
I was with her when she got that tattoo. She was nervous, but determined to get it. How could anybody do that to Anna? I just don't get it. Anna's life wasn't supposed to end like that.
Tattoos on a victim, especially somebody who's otherwise unidentifiable, can be very helpful to an investigator. The particular style of tattoo, the location of it on their person, the exact image itself help to identify that person, because their family, their friends, the people that know them best are able to, say with a fair amount of certainty that that tattoo in that location belongs to this person. There are instances where tattoos, which are fairly common, scripts that you can buy at any tattoo shop, and get it put on your shoulder or something like that, that can sometimes be problematic because there are some common tattoos like that. But very often they can be used to identify a person.
Investigators are also now coming to understand the full scope of the crime. They discover what appear to be wheelbarrow tire tracks in the woods where Anna was killed.
Investigators find tracks of Eddie's wheelbarrow at the scene where they found Anna's body and where she was murdered. So it's quite strange that he would have had the foresight to bring a wheelbarrow with him and have a wheelbarrow in his truck. Even though he did some gardening work, this isn't a normal piece of equipment for him to take around with him. So it seems like this was premeditated, at least to a certain extent.
It appears as though Sandberg left Anna's body to rot in the wheelbarrow that night before he headed back home to get some rest, only returning the next morning, this time prepared to finish what he started. But one question still haunts the FBI. Did Eddie work alone, or did he have help? While Eddie is detained by local police, Tracy and Tracy's mother, Eddie's sister, Barb Sandberg, are interrogated by the FBI. Although she appears quite guarded during her interview, Tracy nevertheless tells investigators her small, yet ultimately potentially pivotal role in Anna's murder. On the day of Anna's disappearance, Tracy had visited her Uncle Eddie with some groceries bought for him by her mother Barb. According to Tracy, she may have told her Uncle Eddie about her plan to get Anna Doppler fired, and may have even leaked how Anna was now walking the streets of Anchorage without a phone. She may also have even described, in passing, what Anna looked like.
A person who has a very particular course of action planned may go to great lengths to obtain information in order to further their goals. If there's a way that they can use their relationship with somebody else to get information, then they'll certainly do that. This person may have provided information completely unwittingly, not realizing that it was going to be used for the purpose of tracking down a homicide victim. But like I said, a person who is intent on hurting somebody else will go to any lengths to get the information they need to carry out their plan.
But could this brief description have been enough to make Anna a target for Eddie? Investigators are unsure, but feel they now have enough evidence to support Eddie's own guilty claim, help from his young niece or not. Days later, Anna's parents finally arrive in Anchorage. They positively identify Anna's body at the local mortuary, where the devastated Doppler family are consoled by Anna's friends, fellow Bavarians, Sophia and Charlotte.
In talking to the family, I know how bad they're feeling. They must feel so hopeless. So do I.
The trial begins, and the Doppler's attorney asks for 22 years in prison for Sandberg and $20,880 in damages for the family. But Eddie's lawyer argues that there is no evidence to suggest a premeditated murder. Eddie was only interested in sex, and Anna fought against it. He didn't mean to kill her. He was only acting in self-defense, as Anna became violent with him when she overreacted to his advances, Sandberg's lawyer claims. But the family will not get the satisfaction of seeing Eddie Sandberg receive anywhere near the punishment his crime deserves, nor will they receive the financial compensation needed for Anna's burial. But one more thing continues to puzzle the investigators. Why would Anna get into the car with Sandberg in the first place?
She was trusting, but not to the point of blindly going with someone. She was smart, so she must have had some reason for going.
One part of this case that still puzzles investigators is that Anna wasn't the type of girl that would normally get into a stranger's car. She was smarter than that. So we're wondering what on earth this man said to her that made her get into his vehicle. Lots of times when we get into a situation where our life is in jeopardy, we don't always react the way we think we will. We always think we'll fight, or maybe we'll run away.
What's called the fight or flight response, depending on your personality, I suppose, makes you either stand up and fight for yourself or run away as fast as you can. There are instances where people are so overcome with fear that they're unable to move, sort of like the deer in the headlights kind of scenario where you're frozen by your fear.
A lot of times, the panic can also make us freeze, so we just don't do anything at all. This could have happened to Anna, where she just was unable to fight back because her brain just couldn't believe that this was actually happening to her.
In Chugach State Park, just north of the town of Anchorage, Alaska, Anna Doppler's fight-or-flight responses finally do kick in once the car is stopped and her captor's intentions become crystal clear. But it's too late, as the young German student is brutally murdered and left to rot in a wheelbarrow at the secluded scene of the crime for almost 24 hours. The Doppler family will only receive $1,100, not even enough to cover Anna's burial, as Sandberg is sentenced to just 17 years in prison for a lesser charge of manslaughter.
I think a piece of evidence such as in this case where there's a wheelbarrow in the back of a person's truck. It may be considered somewhat circumstantial with respect to proving premeditation. If there's absolutely no reason for that wheelbarrow to be there under any circumstances, that's one thing. But if it's something that's, maybe commonly carried around by this person, then again, it's a piece of circumstantial evidence. It helps to maybe bolster the case that the crime was premeditated, but in and of itself, it doesn't prove anything.
As for Tracy, there is no evidence to suggest she was directly involved, consciously or unconsciously, in Anna's killing. One can only speculate as to Tracy's true intentions for having wanted Anna fired and out of her life. But the real question remains: what would have driven Eddie Samberg to kill?
I suppose anytime you can get a glimpse into what somebody's interests are, their proclivity for violence or sexual violence, that would go a long way to explain what their mindset is and what it is that sort of gets them going. If a person has a long internet history, search history for sexual violence, it would indicate to me that that's definitely a clue as to their personality.
One thing people didn't know, those nice little old ladies getting their gardens done by Eddie, is that he had this huge addiction to very kinky, dark pornography. Maybe Anna was just his way of acting out these fantasies. Maybe she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Anna's death is still devastating on the family. I don't think we'll ever get over it. And Eddie? Will they ever forgive him? No. And I know I won't. Anna had so much to give this world. I'll never forget her.
For Anna's friends and family, moving on from the devastating loss is hard. Anna's friends, Sophia and Charlotte, both end up quitting their jobs on the cruise ship, citing their love of travel has faded, in large part due to Anna's murder. After the investigation, Tracy is fired from the cruise ship. She now lives with her mother, Barb. Eddie Samberg continues to serve his sentence in prison. He has not spoken about the events that transpired on the day of Anna's murder since his confession. As for the Doppler family, they can take comfort in the fact that their Anna made such a positive impact on so many people and continues to inspire them to have fun, be adventurous, and above all, to be kind and understanding to everyone they meet.